Joining me this morning from a Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, attorney Lucas Weber. Hey, we're celebrating, and we didn't even have to wait that long. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's good to be back in the program.
Yes. Well, we are. We cautiously, I always am cautiously optimistic about news like this. Of course, the statement that came out that the Wisconsin Supreme Court was going to reject a bid to reconsider congressional maps. Who would have thunk, Lucas?
Yeah, exactly. This is a great update at the end of the day yesterday. When I was on the show a couple days ago, just talking about some of the practical and legal realities, some of the difficulties that those petitions faced. It looks like those resonated. The Supreme Court certainly understood those, and they declined both of those petitions yesterday, which means the current maps that are in place and that have been in place for the past several elections are going to stay in place now for the foreseeable future. So certainly good news for the rule of law, good news for anybody who is just following these things. You're not going to have to have this whip turn of new districts every couple of years. It's just a nice win all around.
Explain to me how you single-handedly assured that this was going to happen.
Right after the Supreme Court election, there were some rumblings. Recall during the election, some of the supporters on one of the sides were arguing that this election could put the fate of the United States House of Representatives in the crosshairs. So their goal was to flip the court again and to use the court then to change Wisconsin's congressional maps to favor their favored candidates, and then ultimately flip control of the House, is what they were telling everybody. We put out a memo at that time, right after the election, that just said, hey, there's some rumblings of this from partisans. Here's why it's unlikely to happen. We explained some of the legal realities, like the U.S. Constitution's elections clause, which the Supreme Court has made clear, to state courts that it's primarily the role of the legislature, and although courts have a role to play, they can't exceed their traditional judicial review here. We basically said this kind of mid-decade redraw that they were seeking would violate the elections clause, and so the U.S. Supreme Court would be the ultimate backstop here. And then as a practical matter, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin had already rejected basically identical claims almost a year ago, and that majority is still there. So, as a practical matter, they'd have to convince all of these justices to basically say, nah, we were wrong a year ago, and thankfully the justices didn't do that. They stood by what they had said previously. It's a good decision, a good rule of law decision, a common sense decision, one that, we were certainly happy with, and I think is a good outcome for our state.
Can we do like a victory lap or something? Spike the football, is that permissible?
Certainly. I think on these kind of things, I would have said after the last time that the fight was over, and then they came back with more. So who knows kind of what their next strategy is as these people go back to the drawing board. Certainly. But I think here for now on these petitions, they are over. The court has issued a decision on them. And we'll kind of, I guess, wait and see what they try to do next. But for now, those of us who are, in favor of the rule of law in Wisconsin and traditional constitutional order here should certainly be happy with this victory.
So do you take a victory like this and just sort of put it, on maybe a lower shelf? Because, is there any way for it to come back and haunt us? Is there any possible way that someone can try this again, or is this the end of the line, at least for redrawing congressional maps in Wisconsin?
Yeah, for these ones, they can always try again, I suppose, if they wanted to. But the fact that these, legal claims now have been rejected several times over by this court, I think sends a pretty clear message to those who may want to try this again with this court. So, any number of things they could do in the future. Not going to sort of hazard a guess there. Sometimes it feels like you're playing whack-a-mole, but I think, like I said, for those of us who support, constitutional order and the rule of law here in Wisconsin, this was a great day. The court yesterday unanimously also struck down the governor's unlawful power grab related to some literacy funding in Wisconsin and a line item veto case. So it was just a really great day yesterday, and certainly we're pleased with both of those decisions. So.
All right. So I'm glad you brought that up about the literacy. And I actually had a guest on just in the first part of the hour that I asked this question. And I mean, far be it for anyone on our side to ever try to put themselves in the minds of those on the left. But I mean, our state's education governor was opposed to literacy standards or even just requirements, or I'm not certain what specifically he vetoed. I mean, I know there was obviously funding involved, but I mean, what was his justification? Well, maybe you can't even speak for him, but what, as you understood it, what was his justification for vetoing literacy to begin with for Wisconsin school children?
Yeah. So what he did was he took a bill that the legislature passed. The legislature created some new policies to improve literacy in Wisconsin. They enacted a law on that. The governor took that bill and tried to line item veto it. Under the Wisconsin Constitution, though, the governor only has the ability to line item veto what are called appropriation bills. So those are bills that within the text of the bill itself actually appropriate money. This bill didn't do that. The governor argued that it was sort of related to an appropriation, so that he had this expansive power to line item veto it and basically recraft the legislation as he would have written it, rather than how the legislature wanted it to be written. The legal action then that ensued was, the question was basically, was this an appropriation bill, or did the governor unlawfully line item veto it? Was one of the claims in it, and that's what the court said yesterday. Is this was not an appropriation bill, so the governor had no power to use his line item veto pen to sort of recraft it and strike out some of the policies that the legislature put in place there. So I think that was the good news for our separation of powers in Wisconsin again. And certainly good news for anybody who's concerned about literacy in our state, because the legislature really put together some pretty robust reforms here designed to help improve schools and help kids all around Wisconsin, and look forward to those coming into place.
So this is breaking news, and I know you didn't prep for it, but I'm sure you've got an opinion. You're an attorney, for God's sakes. But Supreme Court just has allowed, or just ruled, the United States Supreme Court ruled to allow states to defund Planned Parenthood. Wow, another victory.
Yeah, I have not seen that case yet. I apologize.
Well, that's all right. Well, I mean, I would imagine that this is a positive, and it would be perhaps, I don't know if Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty would weigh in on this, or would be representing those that. And I suppose it's not going to happen with our current governor, but the ability for states to defund this radical organization, Planned Parenthood. And I mean, can you talk to the precedent setting that this decision does? Is that the way that I want to phrase it? That the precedent that this sets for potentially other cases that involve states that want to defund, insert an organization after that.
Yeah, so I haven't read the opinion yet, so I can't comment specifically on it. But I can tell you that this U.S. Supreme Court, this court in recent years has been very focused on ensuring that the federal government is the limited federal government that was originally created by the states, and that it acts within the law. And so it's really no surprise to me that they would rule that and ensure that states can act as separate sovereigns and write their own laws as states see fit, and this certainly seems to fit within that framework. So I would expect that would be something that would just kind of empower the states as states again, and something that would encourage them to take control over their own resources and futures.
So, Lucas, how does the Wisconsin Supreme Court get something so right like yesterday, but then get the 400-year veto so wrong?
Yeah, I think we will never agree on certainly every issue. Me and any of my good friends on the other side of the aisle, but I think there are still any number of things that we all can agree on, and some of these key issues, like we've seen over the past couple of days, there is still a lot of common ground, and I think it's important to really celebrate that and to focus on that and to say, hey, they got it right here, and be thankful for that. So hopefully we see more of that to come, and we'll certainly keep advocating for those issues and the rule of law in our state.
Anything else you'd like to add about any? I mean, like, can you give a sneak preview of any of the other cases you're working on, or is it all top secret?
Yeah, we've got a couple of irons in the fire here that we're going to be announcing in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned. I'd certainly love to come back on and tell your listeners about some of the fun stuff that we've got coming. But
way to create some suspense.
We're always keeping busy. Yeah, we're always keeping busy over here for sure.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it truly is. You may think I jest. I don't think anyone does, but there is a certain amount of job security in Democrats still being part of the conversation. But I mean, I would imagine when we do have a new Republican governor in 2026, please, dear God, let that happen. There are still going to be challenges that your organization will face, and it never ends. I mean, I think your organization sued the Trump administration over recent decision. It had to do with the FBI, and I mean, there are all kinds of other issues that just need to be, brought to the attention of a very friendly to the conservative movement presidential administration.
Yeah, definitely. We've brought suits against politicians from all parties, whether it was Governor Walker, Governor Evers, President Trump, President Biden. We don't care what the letter is after their name. We're more concerned with, are they following the law or not, and that's our primary goal, and it always will be.
Well, one last thing before I let you go regarding. There's a long list of what the Democrats would like to see undone, the reforms that we've seen here in Wisconsin that have made Wisconsin a great place to live and work for and own businesses for the taxpayers of Wisconsin. But, I mean, one of the things that I would imagine Will is gearing up for is the challenges to Act 10.
Yeah, absolutely, and great question there. I could probably talk about this for hours, but I won't do that. That challenge to Act 10 is currently on appeal. It's in the District 2 Court of Appeals, which is in between Milwaukee and Madison. It's been fully briefed at the Court of Appeals, so the Court of Appeals can consider that at any time here. They have a number of appeals that come to the Court of Appeals, so it could take a long time before we get a final decision out of them, but the next step will be that Court of Appeals decision. And then from there, I'm certain whichever side doesn't prevail, we'll petition the Supreme Court of Wisconsin to review it. And we are certainly involved in that fight. We represent a Kenosha school teacher who supports Act 10 and the benefits that it had provided her. And we represent her as an intervener in that case, defending Act 10.
Despite, really, what an attorney does is you have to fight all the time. You have to be geared up to defend. And it seems to me that everyone whom I've met from Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty really has a positive and friendly demeanor and outlook. Is that a prerequisite for working for Will?
Yeah, I think we try to hire people that take a positive view. We all certainly really enjoy our role and the role we get to play in defending liberty and fighting for the little guy every day. But yeah, I think it's this kind of work just sort of, I think, attracts a certain type of someone, and we try to be pretty happy over here and keep smiles on our faces. Some days it's harder than others, but when you're fighting the good fight, you're always doing it with a smile on your face. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I don't know if I've asked you this before. I think I've mentioned this to Luke Berg and also to Dan Lennington, but is this a quality, patience that you've developed as when you became an attorney, or is this something that you were just hardwired with?
Yeah, I think you don't really have a choice as an attorney, right? And a lot of these cases, the wheels of justice often turn very slowly. So you just you don't have a choice. We just got to deal with it and trust that justice will be done in the long term. And we just our job is to put our clients in the best spot to succeed and to get there. So.
All right. So, final thing, make a pitch, if you would please, for your organization, and if there are legal issues that are happening within our listening area and in our, our listeners' communities, how can they reach your organization to, to determine if you're able to help?
Yeah, for sure. So our website is the best way to reach us. So that's will-law, WILL-LAW.org. You can go on there and learn about all the cases we're working on. But you can also click on a little link at the top to contact a lawyer. If you see something going awry at any level of government, local, state, or federal, fill out that form. Let us know. We've got an attorney on call every day who's looking at those forms as they get submitted in, and we review every single one to determine if there's anything that we can do to help. So we don't always have the resources available to take every case, and but whenever we can, we want to jump on those. So I certainly appreciate anyone bringing anything to our attention, and if anybody supports the work that we do, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are sustained by donors in Wisconsin and throughout the nation. We do operate on those donations, so if you are so compelled, you can also donate on our website as well.
Can you make a distinction about what cases you do take up and what ones you don't? I mean, obviously it has to do with government v. citizen, or similar. It really doesn't have to do with personal legal issues.
Exactly. Yeah, we are always looking for cases that will have a broader impact. That aren't just kind of a one-off odd case. We look for something that's going to have a broader, societal-wide impact. Just because we have such limited resources here and staff time, that we take those cases that'll have the broadest impact. So we're typically looking for any case in which government has done something to harm somebody that they may do again in the future, that we can step in and right that wrong and make sure that nobody else has to suffer that same harm. Whether it's an equal protection violation, a due process violation, violating your free speech rights, not following their own rules and regulations, just holding government accountable and serving as that vanguard for freedom, helping protect everyday Wisconsinites and everyday Americans.
Lucas Weber, thanks for joining me this morning. I sincerely appreciate it, and keep up the great work. I guess I will say for sure do that victory lap and spike in the end zone. And you personally were responsible for what happened yesterday with the Supreme Court their unwillingness to take up the case about redistricting again congressional map. So well done. Thank you. You saved America yesterday.
Thank you. And we can only do it because we have clients who are willing to stand up and put their names on these pleadings. So I thank them too, and appreciate the opportunity to be on today.
You're always welcome anytime. Thanks again, Lucas, and give Bear a hug for me.
Will do. Take care, Meg.
Have a great day.